Hi, my name is Ray Pastor, and I'm going to talk about my patterns I use for the Minelab CTX on the beach. Now, I live on the U.S. East Coast in Wilmington, North Carolina, so the beaches that I hunt are around there. They're pretty low in mineralization, just so you kind of get a feel for my environment, because your pattern needs to be adjusted for your beaches because it's always going to change. So these are four patterns that I'm using that work on my beach as well. I'd probably need to change this if I go to Florida or other parts on the East Coast, definitely on the West Coast. So it all depends on where you live. So you take a look at these and see what works, what doesn't work for you, and you might need to modify them or mod them a little bit based on where you live. All right, so right here, this is my main pattern that I'm using for the wet sand. So this is my one of my wet sand patterns that I'm using on the wet sand. When the wet sand's a little trashy, not too trashy. So, essentially what I'm doing here, this is basically just a modified version of the standard beach program and the pattern that Andy discusses in his book, the CTX handbook. What this gets rid of, first of all, on the bottom here, we can see that I'm getting rid of all iron targets. And then this just some iron bleed through, but this will also right here, this will help get rid of bottle caps, those pop tops, the screw-on caps. It will help to get rid of them. It won't eliminate them entirely, but I've found my numbers of them go down significantly because a lot of times when I go over them several times, it's a combination of iron and I get some metal tones up in here. So, you have to test how things are sounding on your beach. You can see that I like the response to be long. That's a personal preference. You don't need to do that. If you prefer pitch hold or whatever, do what you want to do for that. I go recovery deep and seawater. I need both of those settings on my saltwater beach. I have low trash and I prefer sizing pinpoint. These settings are all preference for the most part. I mean, seawater you might need recovery deep, recovery fast or not. But, do you like sizing? What kind of pinpoint do you like? What kind of response do you like? Those are all for the most part. What do you prefer? How does it help you hunt? A lot of guys prefer pitch hold because it actually helps them pick up extra targets. I go really slow when I detect and check and recheck a lot of false signals. Pitch hold doesn't really help me too much. I haven't found that it increases my target numbers whatsoever. All right, my next, and this is what I use on a beach where I saltwater, wet sand, where I'm getting I'm not getting any hits. It's a very clean, maybe sanded in area, a piece of wet sand that I'm on. I have just an open screen. Now, when I have this open screen, my tones are still set, and I'm going to show you my tones for both of these patterns, pattern one and pattern two. I'll show you the tones that I use, but this is an open screen that just really gets rid of the last line here of iron. Let me show you what my tones are for this. You can see that my conductivity is set so that for the conductivity and ferrous targets, you can see I have a very low sounding tone for iron at 75, just a little above that, just so you can just hear it, so I can hear all the iron. And then it gets lower a little bit, and then this is a max high. So I know when I'm getting like my pennies in here, which are like right around here, it's a pretty high target. When I hit a dime or a quarter, it's very high, or a piece of silver, it like screams at me. These are my nickels and also my pop tops, from soda cans. And then this would be like more of gold, platinum, things like that. So these are the tones that I have set. So I am using the combined mode, which I do prefer. On the open screen, it allows me to hear everything and I can tell pretty much what it is from the tone and ID linking it all together. All right, so that's wet sand. Now, once I get on the dry sand, I usually change it because I'm not a big dry sand hunter. I will hunt there sometimes during the high tide if I feel motivated to go out, but I'm pretty much a low tide wet sand hunter or I go in the water. So it just kind of depends on what I feel like doing that day. But when I do go on the dry sand, like let's say I go into the wet sand one morning and it's just sanded in, I'm not going to hunt there because I know I'm not going to find anything. So what I do is I will go to the dry sand and I've changed my pattern completely. This is my high trash pattern. This is the pattern that I use when it's a very trashy beach, which on the dry sand where I live, that's what the beaches are like. They're high trash. If I have an open pattern, I'm going to be stopped every second hitting on something. Little pieces of soda can, pieces of junk, pieces of garbage, pieces of keys, all kinds, you name it, tacks, BBs, bobby pins, you name it, it's there. It's all over the place on the dry sand where I live. The beaches are very trashy. So you have to really use discrimination. So what this does, I'm going to get all gold signals. I have all, the 12. I'm going to hit all of those. And I'm going to hit silver by having this open. The silver's over here, and you can hit some silver up here as well, I have. But basically, this helps me to eliminate a lot of the bottle caps, which are going to, on my machine and my beach, sound up here for the most part. It's also going to help me get rid of a lot of that iron that might fall through. Now, using a pattern like this, there is the chance that I'm going to miss targets, but I'm also on a trashy beach, so I have to utilize my time good. Uh, so I will still hit all the coins and everything. So this is my standard dry sand pattern that I'm using right now. Also, like when I'm running out of time and I only have 30 minutes left and I'm just on the dry sand, I probably will switch to this pattern as well. All right, and the tones that I'm using for that, I'm using these tones for everything that I've showed here today. I use these tones for everything. All right, and my final pattern now. This pattern is designed for super, super trash. I'm talking, I do a couple things here, and let me talk about what I'm doing here. So first of all, you can see that it's very similar to this pattern that I just showed, except I've filled in right here, and I've filled in right here, and I've filled in right here. So what are my reasons for doing that? All right, the reasons for filling in right here is to get rid of very small pieces of foil. Now, by doing this, I'm quite possibly missing some platinum rings, maybe even gold. That's very low here. However, on the dry sand where I live, the chances of finding that stuff is very, very low anyway. Whereas every other swing, I'm hitting a small piece of foil. So sometimes it's almost I can't even detect because of the foil. So I have to start to try to get rid of some of it. I will still always accept the 1204, even though a lot of times that's foil too, but I don't go that far. I've gotten rid of 2 rows here. So you just need to kind of gauge what works best for you. But this is like a super trashy area. Like I'm standing next to the garbage can detecting. So much foil goes on there that I have to have something like this. Next, I have this blocked out. If you don't know what this is blocking out your pennies. Um, a lot of times on the dry sand where I live, I find tons and tons of pennies. Now, pennies, there can also be gold, and there can be other stuff here that I'm missing. However, sometimes people will, at hotels or whatever, people have been known to throw just tons of pennies out into the sand. So there might be an area where there's like 100 pennies just in one little patch, and I need to miss them and go through and see what else is there. And so instead of hearing the sound and ignoring the number, I'll just disk it out so that I can hear everything else there. So that's why I have this. This is my extreme trash, dry sand. I'm on the beach. I have 15 minutes to detect, and I'm just kind of more or less heading back to my car detecting where I want to miss all pennies. I don't really want to hit the small pieces of foil. I only want solid, good things at this point. So this is the setting that I'll use. And I will keep my tones here. All right, so those are my settings. Thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions.